Previously on From.
It's Megan's favorite spot.
You'll bury me next to them, right?
Of course. Frank, the box. Can't do it.
How do you think people are going to react when you let Frank go?
Aren't you supposed to be talking to me about the virtues of mercy?
Is that what you prefer?
Hey, I prefer not to put a broken man in a fucking box to be torn apart when the sun goes down.
But you built a guillotine in the town square. What do you think happens when people realize you lack the conviction to use it?
You take that and you make whatever life you can out there.
So you're telling me I'm in a town I can't leave, and that every night monsters come from the forest.
No one is trying to be cruel to you, but you need to understand what's going on.
Oh, God.
Toby?
What are you doing?
I'm checking to see if they've moved.
If what moved?
The trees.
Have you seen the boy who lives out here? We're friends.
If you see that friend of yours, tell him Victor says hello. Sarah, just tell me what you did.
I left the door open.
All newcomers have to decide where they're going to live. Here in Colony House or down in the town. It's just part of how we do things here. I'd like to take the both of you, show you around.
Well, I want to come. This is about all of us, right? I want to see.
We need you to stay here and be with Ethan.
2, 1.
Why are you doing this? You guys barely know us. It's just what we do.
Are you living in town or Colony House?
Town.
Julie.
Colony House.
Why are you doing this?
Girl made her choice.
I appreciate everything you're trying to do for me, but the only two things that I love in this world are gone. I want to see my girls again.
Wow. As recaps go, that's a huge one. So we're here talking From on Epic, and we are at season 1, episode 4, A Rock and A Farway. But before we get into this episode, I want to recap and say that for the first 3 episodes, which were released all at once, it was an amazing roller coaster journey. And as we get into episode 4, that sat with me for the entire time, the entire week until this episode hit. And I have to say, I went back and thought about some of the things that happened in those first 3 episodes in a way that I haven't been sort of moved by a series in a long time. I have so many questions. I had so many just up and down feelings. What was going to happen? How were things going to unfold? I have to say that by episode 4, I was so firmly in this is a good show. No flukes about was it just the first couple episodes, good run, nothing like that. I absolutely felt like I was in love with what was happening here. So I'm going to introduce my co-host, and let's start talking about this stuff. Kinte, how are you? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I have to say, okay, so it's earlier in the morning than we usually podcast, and I was actually really excited that we were going to get to do this because this is one of my. I know I said the last time that episode 3 is real pivotal, and I did really love it, but episode 4 feels like, ooh, man, we got some stuff to uncover. Tell me, just real briefly, give me, how are you feeling about how things are progressing so far? Where are you at?
Episode. It's taking a nice brisk pace, I would say. I hate to use the word slow because the slow sounds negative, and I don't have a negative feeling about the show, but I would say that the show is taking a nice brisk pace. Is that
Yeah, I think so. I think, some shows sort of give you a baptism by fire, if you will, where they just
Right.
sort of immerse you in everything, and then they kind of just expect you to go along, and then maybe you'll learn some things, right?
right?
This show feels a little bit more like we are unraveling. Something is happening, and we probably, maybe, already have seen a lot, but it takes the strings to kind of go around a couple of times before we can see what's underneath it. And that's what I think is so amazing about this show. Like, the characters are all there. We already know who everyone is, and yet we just keep learning episode by episode that there is so much under the surface. And I love that. And yeah, it's not, I don't think it's not slow in terms of its pace, but you have to uncover the layers. So it feels like each episode has a layer or two to uncover, and then we get to see more of the picture underneath. I feel like this is a great method for storytelling, but it does take a little bit of patience. You're not going to get to the meat of whatever it is that's going on right away, and that's the point. We don't know exactly what the meat is, which is kind of cool. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I have to say that you never know, man. Like, look, let's just be honest. There are so many brand new shows on so many different platforms, and
Also true.
it's hard to keep up, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you keep hearing about, oh well, this new show, oh it's really good, and everybody check it out and all of this stuff. But then it's like you get to a point where you're like, even if it's really good, it's like, how much time do I dedicate to watching all this content? I mean, but
Right.
what I'll say in this show is it's definitely hasn't been disappointing. It's been pretty good, and I'm still don't. And I like that I don't know how I feel about all the characters yet.
Mm,
That I haven't made up my mind about certain people and whatnot. You know what I mean? And
yes.
and even our lead, who Harold Perrineau, I uh, I don't know exactly how to feel about him as well. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that I'm still unsure about
Yeah.
exactly how I feel about him and how he fits into everything.
I think having conflicted or conflicting feelings about who these characters are almost adds to the charm is the wrong word, but it almost adds to like the mysteriousness and the attraction that we have toward the people in the town. They are clearly, they are not all showing us in the first couple of episodes who they really are or what they're really about. Everyone has, it feels like everyone has some kind of something below the surface that it takes a little while for it to show itself, and yet at the same time, as we are seeing that, we're also being exposed to all of these other things that are happening in the town. And every time an episode goes by, this place gets scarier and scarier on a totally different level. So the first time, I mean, we're told right up front that there's monsters. I mean, that's pretty scary.
Right.
But then each episode reveals something scarier than the last time. And it's like, well, how do you get scarier than every night there's monsters? And yet this show does that. It makes us more invested in a story that gets scarier and scarier. And also, if I could also say one more thing, this episode in particular, um, I think really heavily leaned in on there's a mystery here to be unraveled. It's not just that, okay, you're supernaturally in a town. It's there is something, and this is basically via Jade and Jim. There is something happening here that is odd, and also somehow they think they're going to figure out. I don't know if that's true, but that's what they think. And I kind of love that. I just really love that. So let's. I wanted to start. We're not going to start at the very beginning, because I want to bring something up first. I wanted to bring up Victor and his relationship with Ethan. it feels like the two of them, and I really would like to know how you think about this. It feels like the two of them have some kind of sort of I don't know, a simpatico understanding. Like maybe Victor really never uh grew up, like he was just a child for all of this time, and that's why he gets along with Ethan so well. But I don't know. I kind of struggled with that. So give me your take. What do you think?
I think one thing that Victor can understand, unlike anybody else, is what is it like to be in this, to come up in this place,
Mm,
as a child, you know, and think about it, like how stunted his growth is probably. You know what
mm.
I mean? That that is what's going on.
Well, do you remember what I said at the very first? Was it the first episode or the second episode? I think it was the first. Where I said I think that somehow children are a threat to
Hmm.
this town. And I don't know exactly how they are a threat, but I had the same feeling, like the reason that Victor is able to connect with Ethan is because I feel like he is like some kind of not a conduit, but a tether between the town itself and the people. So the history of the town and then the people that are there now. He's like we know that most of the people in the town have not been there for as long as he has. And then, we can go into the very beginning of this where we find out that Victor was basically the sole survivor of this massive death. Um and okay, I feel kind of like, and I don't know how to describe this in really good descriptive words, but I feel like the town raised Victor.
Right.
Um, does that make sense? What did you think? How did you, like, when you saw all of that happening to Victor at the beginning? What did you think was? How did you feel about that?
Oh man, it was sad. It was sad. Think about that. That you're this child who is who's stuck in a place, and there's nobody to protect him.
Well, that's my. I think that that's my point. I don't know, but I think that when we see the boy in white, who is basically the only person in the town aside from Victor. The rest of the town has been completely massacred. There's no one left, right? Bodies in the streets. The opening has a shot of the merry-go-round, and there's a body in the background, and it's from this episode. That is absolutely the still from this episode. Um, it feels like that the boy in white is somehow also responsible for Victor being able to survive. I don't know how, but clearly the boy in white is not a threat. If he was a threat, then Victor wouldn't be alive.
Right.
So I feel like we can rule out the idea that he is at least the bad monsters that come at night, right? He might be
Right.
a good monster in some other way. Or I shouldn't say a good monster. He could be a monster of a different sort, but he is definitely not a threat to the people in the town. But having said that, I wow, it's amazing that the town does not treat Victor more, um that they don't really respect him more, because can you imagine how could you possibly live in a place and not be, to me, not be like Jade, not want to get to the bottom of what's going on? And the first 3 episodes of this series basically give us all of these ideas about, well, I mean, they're just busy trying to survive. But at the core of this has to be this: how in the world can we figure out what is going on so that we can move forward? And just everyone seems just incredibly stuck, except Victor, who seems to just, okay, he's accepted it, but he also knows stuff. So I love that character, and I really, as we go through this episode, really wanted to highlight that Victor seems to have an exceptional relationship with Ethan that is that is different from the relationship that he has with almost everyone else. And I found that very kind of cool. Kind of cool. Um, do you have any other thoughts about the that first part, the opening part?
No, no, no. Go ahead, continue.
Well, he comes out of I guess I would call it a storm cellar. Did you think it was kind of like a storm cellar?
Yeah, it's that place that we keep seeing.
It's the place where Jade
Yeah.
sees some what seems like maybe it was an illusion or a vision or something, but Jade is absolutely sure that that's not what it was. Jade is absolutely sure that he saw something real, and it was one of the maybe one of the monsters that was held prisoner by a giant boulder, right? In that
Right,
one room.
right,
Um and then Jade looks back and it's gone. But it was scary enough that, he was out of there. That's the same place that Victor comes out of. And so I don't know if it's sanctuary or if there's something else, but the other people in town don't seem to recognize it as any sacred place or anything, right? Did I miss
right.
anything with that?
No, no, no one does.
Even Kenny, who after Jade says this is what I saw, Kenny's like, oh yeah, okay. Which also was just sort of crazy. Um but that aspect, that there's something about that place that seems pretty important, and Victor found some kind of sanctuary in there when he comes out and everybody's gone. um it it, it's weird because we don't actually see at first. I didn't see, although I have to say I do need to go back and look at this because I there is something there. I don't know if it's the illustration of the talisman that I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing or if it's something else, but there's some kind of symbol there. And so that also seems like it might be important. But Victor isn't there day in and day out.
No, not at all.
So obviously he's not thinking that, like, oh, that's the only safe place in town, which is also kind of interesting. I don't know. Lots of things are interesting about this.
Hmm.
Um. Okay. Let's talk about Jade for a second.
Okay.
I have so many conflicting feelings about Jade at this point. First of all, I hate this personality type. In real life, I
Okay.
hate this personality type. Not that. Sorry, Jade. I'm sure you're an awesome person.
Yeah.
But this personality type drives me nuts because they're the kind of people that are like so uptight and so I don't know, sort of like they're motive driven in a way that is sometimes not beneficial to solving a problem because they are so busy trying to do things that they aren't listening to what's really being said. And I thought that we were going to get there a little bit when Kenny was like, okay, well, this is what's happening. And I thought Jade was going to actually accept it. But clearly he doesn't. Even when he's shown the map that says, hey, here's where everybody was from. And what did you think about how do you think about Jade altogether and how he's processing what's happening?
Um. Well, you got to think about it from his point of view. He is someone who's built himself up, and all of that, good stuff. And so he's a problem solver. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And what I take from him is, okay, I've solved problems in my career. That's why, what he said, he's supposed to be a billionaire, right?
Right, some kind of startup guru, I think.
Yeah. So he's thinking about it like this. All right, I will just use the tools that made me successful, in the real world, and I'll
Hmm.
just bring them over to here. And then that's how I will be able to solve this riddle, and he's looking at everybody else like, okay, why are we not trying to figure out how to get out of here? Like, I'm not going to just accept, you know, I'm not going to just accept this is what it is.
Hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and try to figure out how I'm going to get up out of here.
Except, yes, you're right. That is exactly, I think, uh, probably his inner motivation seems like that is very well explained that way. The thing that that it feels like nobody is paying attention to is that Victor is telling them basically, "Hey guys, remember when there was this big?" He's not saying it this way. I'm just paraphrasing and making it sound ridiculously simple. But
Right.
remember when there were two cars and it was a big deal? And then in the opening of this episode, we are treated to, hey, this is what happened on that day when, or not on that day, on that during that time when there were two cars. When there were two cars, something massive happened. Something huge happened. Um, and I feel like the show is telling us, yeah, guess what? Something big is happening. There's two cars. Now, what might be what that might mean feels really nebulous at this point, because I honestly I can't think of a single thing that I've seen so far that portent would mean in terms of what is to come. But I will say that as this episode unfolded, I started feeling like this was more of a story about not everyone's personal purgatory or this is hell or anything like that. I started feeling like there is intent and design behind this. Like like it feels way too purposeful to be just some supernatural elements thrown in to scare people or whatever. There is something uh yeah, structural that makes sense here. And what how do you feel about that? What are you thinking at this point, or like what would your theory be at this point about what might be happening?
Basically, my theory is that there, I mean, I've, it's funny though. We're talking about this, but I haven't given it the, I guess I haven't given it the thought process of, you know, of really making that kind of leap to what I really think is going on. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, obviously they're stuck in a place. They need to find, I mean, well, it's not even, the show isn't even about really trying to find your way home. It's basically trying to survive. Um,
Right,
so,
and the name of the show is From. It's
right,
not Lost, it's not uh you know going places, moving on. It's called From, and that feels important. So, go ahead.
right.
Sorry.
No, I'm just saying though, like, um, so I'll be honest with you. I had, I've tried to think about it. I tried to give it a thought of what I think is actually going on, and I ain't got a clue.
I feel like as a mystery goes, this is a really good example of how you can tell a story that isn't Scooby Doo and the detective agency, and yet it feels so mysterious, so darkly purposeful in both intent and design, and also just so like we know that the characters play a part in all of this, but we have no idea how. Um, so yeah, I mean that's just who I am. I'm always thinking about those kinds of things behind
Right.
series and stories. But that's why I ask, because I think sometimes obviously not everybody thinks that way, and it's neither good nor bad. It's just that's where my head is always going. Okay, so we'll go through some events in a second, but let's talk about Boyd.
Okay.
It In this episode, it really feels like we not just get to know more about who Boyd is, but we also discover some things about Boyd which make his story so much sadder. Um, it feels to me, I don't know about you, but it feels to me like Boyd is a man who is uh he clearly has a sense of honor, duty I think is better. He clearly cares about people, but how he's able to keep going day after day after day, it feels like he's getting worn thin. um that was just how I felt. When he was rebuilding the box, it it really hit me that this person is experiencing something like he's been here a really long time, and or it feels like he's been here a really long time, and the place is starting to wear him down. What How did you feel about Boyd this episode?
Yeah, I mean, his health isn't very good. We all know that. We know that we know that his health isn't very good. We know that he's just gotten to a point where, almost like uh um oh my god, Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon, like,
Mm,
you
I'm
know what I
too
mean?
old for this. I'm too
Yeah,
old
I'm
for
too
this.
old for this shit, right? And it's just and that I'm gonna go out on a limb and say he's a good-hearted person from what
Mm,
we've seen so far. Because a lot of times when we just make those assumptions, and then with the show, and then later on we're like, oh no, this person's a piece of crap, right? But no, I can say based on what we've seen, he seems like a good human being.
right. I think you're right. I think everything that we are both being shown, and everything that he does in action, feels like he is a good person. He's
Mhm.
really trying very hard to keep things together. And also it also feels like at this point, he leans on Kenny in kind of a totally different way than I would have expected. Um Instead of being real feeling toward Kenny, it does feel like he's more like he's giving Kenny kind of instructions about how to keep going. And to me, that does feel kind of weird at this point in the series. It feels a little bit weird because we know that Boyd is estranged from his son. It feels like he should be latching on to that, and yet no, he doesn't. Is it in this episode that we find out also? Hopefully, this isn't a spoiler, but I think it's in this episode that we find out that Boyd is the one that came up with the idea for the talismans, right?
Yeah, yeah, which I thought was interesting. That
It is
and
interesting.
how did he even know to do that?
Yeah, and that's not something we don't get told that. We don't get any information about how or where the talisman idea came from, just that Boyd is the one that came up with it. And so you can see how people are instantly attracted to that kind of leadership. He is their savior in some ways. He created a system whereby they didn't have to, at the very least, worry about what was going to happen to them at night. Um, and okay, so I'm going to
So
throw this out
wait,
there.
my question is,
Yeah.
what the hell did they do before the
Well,
talisman?
well, he said, right? He said it was just they would run into the forest and try to survive the night,
That's crazy.
hiding wherever they could, not making any noise. Yeah, I can't even
I don't even
imagine.
know how they were able to do that.
No, I don't either. But well, okay, wait. So back up.
So, but wait. Just as a side note,
Uh-huh.
that really speaks to something, though, that you can be outside and survive.
Hmm.
Like, because the way it seemed like is if you're outside, you basically have almost no chance I mean,
Well,
although we did see them running from the creatures,
mhm.
but it does show you though that you can actually survive and be outside.
My feeling is that we think that we understand some of the rules of this town or this place, and that gives us a little bit of knowledge, and then we start making assumptions and predisposition ideas based on that. And yet at the same time, I also feel like, yeah, that's probably really short-sighted of us. We don't know all the rules. So it could be that if you're outside and something else is a variable that they can't get through, and I don't know what that is. I'm sort of not sure, um because do we know? Well, actually we do know. So Frank was outside in the box,
Right.
and he was closed into the box. So like there was a door, and there was a no real way to get in, right? You can't get in to the box. And he didn't have a talisman, and the monsters were able to get in, right? And then we had when Kenny's dad died, Sarah left the door open, and the talisman was on the wall, and the monsters were able to circumvent the talisman because the door had been left open.
Right.
So there's a whole bunch of special rules for these monsters, and I don't know if we've actually figured out exactly what all these things mean. I mean, at this point, we're just speculating. Even as far into the series as I'm still speculating. I don't know. But it is kind of it that I think that deepens the mystery both of the place and of just sort of the general rules. If they were able to just run into the forest and try to survive the night, does that mean that the town used to have a lot more people coming into it?
I don't know.
Because it to me it feels way too weird that on the very day, basically, well, within 24 hours of the death of the first death that we have of mom and her, Frank's mom, and I mean, I'm sorry, Frank's wife and kid. Um, on that very day, that's when we get new people into the town. And not only do we get new people into town, we get two cars on the road. So the ranks have now swelled by way more than the number of people that were actually lost. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which also, I don't know. I don't know if I can assign anything to that, but it does feel kind of weird. The two cars on the road keeps coming up again and again and again. Clearly there is some meaning to that. I don't know what it is. Okay, so let's talk about an event. Uh, First of all, it's really clear that Jim does not like Victor and thinks somehow that Victor is out to corrupt Ethan, hurt Ethan. I don't know. And as a mom, I sort of understand where he's coming from. You're in a new place, you don't know who these people are. Somebody is just taking a weird like to your kid. It does feel kind of weird. Um, but I also feel like we are being shown that Jim has a short temper and clearly doesn't respond to stress very well. You know, I don't
No.
know. What did you think about that?
No, I mean, look, if I'm already on guard, right? I mean, I don't know if I would ever feel 100% comfortable. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
I don't know if I would ever feel comfortable ever. I'm always going to be looking to protect my family and whatnot. So the
truth.
idea of there's a moment, I mean, but then again, there's something about pancakes, and I'm not even trying to be funny, but there's something about pancakes that make you relax, right? And
Uh-huh.
then he had that moment where because remember, he left to cry,
Yeah.
you know, and but anyway,
I'm not saying that Jim is a bad person. I'm saying that he's got anger issues. That he responds to things quickly, shortly, and doesn't quite. It doesn't always quite match the situational tone. Like and I get it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. I'm saying that in this situation it does feel slightly over exaggerated, like we really are supposed to understand that Jim is not exactly the best. He's not controlling himself the best way that he can. I mean, there's a way to deal with the Victor situation without being a jerk about it, and he was just sort of a jerk about it. I mean, he's in a new town. It's their rules, and he's still trying to, I feel like, assert himself as kind of alpha in a situation where he just doesn't have that capability. Um, and again, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I feel like that's how a lot of people would respond. It's just we spend a lot of story time on Jim's response to Victor, and it feels like that's purposeful. Feels
Right.
very purposeful.
You think so?
So okay, so Victor and Ethan, they go out on an adventure, and I'm gonna skip a little bit of some of the stuff that happens between Jim and Tabitha because I'm gonna come back to that. But Ethan and Victor go off on this adventure, and Victor, they're in the woods. And Victor shows Ethan that if he throws a rock into this, it looks like a smiley face to me.
Right.
That you throw it into the tree and it comes out someplace else. Now,
Yeah. And he said
it
even
happened.
people. He said people can travel
Yes.
that way as well. Yeah.
Now, now, it, in this case, Victor said, "Oh, it came someplace close." But apparently, that doesn't have to be the situation.
No.
Because right, I got that right. He did say that.
Yeah, he did say that. He said it could
So
be really far away.
so okay. So hot take. Uh Maybe what happens when you get to the tree has something to do with that kind of time space logic that's happening in the trees. You go in one place and you come out another. But once you come out to the other place, there is you can't escape. Then you're stuck within whatever that little bubble is, which also feels kind of interesting. Like there's actual physical or I shouldn't even say physical. There's some kind of physics property to time and space within some supernatural. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me because even the crazy rules have actual rules, which was kind of cool. So, what did you think about that? About what Victor showed Ethan?
It was really cool, but it's so funny though. It's so nonchalant. Like I wonder if is this like a little secret that he has? Is it something that do the others know about this tree? Uh, you know, and then I mean I know that Victor is stunted as a as an adult,
Right.
but but come on, going and taking somebody's kid like that, you
See,
know,
yeah.
that's
See,
crazy.
I actually don't think that Victor sees
After
it that
after
way.
the after the father basically threatens your life,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah. But you know what? But I'm just gonna say it. I don't think Victor thinks about. I think Victor has been so traumatized. Might not even be the right word. I think Victor lives in his own reality, and I
Clearly.
feel
Mhm.
yeah, and I feel like he thinks of the people from the town as okay. I have to follow your rules because yeah, you're here, and I get that. But I don't feel like Victor actually believes that any of the things that his idea about showing Ethan things, who clearly has seen the boy in white, is too important to him to even let Jim get in the way. Like it feels to me like even well not even it feels to me like Victor recognizes that there is something bigger than just somebody, okay, maybe I'll get hurt out of this or whatever. How do you threaten someone who's already lived through a massacre? How do you threaten someone who has seen the worst of the worst of the worst? Maybe it just falls on sort of deaf ears, like, yeah, okay, you're gonna rant and rave, and okay, fine, but I'm still gonna show Ethan what I need to show him because I feel like this is more important. I don't know. That's what it felt like to me. It felt like whatever his idea was about showing Ethan what he needed to show him, that was way more important. And then, okay, now tell me what you thought about the dogs, because that threw me totally off. I was, wow, what was going on there?
Yeah, I was like, I mean, I guess there's pigs and I think cows there, but the dogs kind of threw me off. Like it just seemed like it was came out of nowhere.
There are no other animals that I can see. No cats, no dogs, no pets of any kind. And somehow these dogs just come out of nowhere. The only other animals that we see are the crows.
Right.
So yeah, that does seem kind of odd. That definitely seems odd. All right, let's first of all, let's talk briefly about Ethan and I'm sorry, not Ethan. Let's talk briefly about Tabitha and Jim. Obviously they've been through some stuff. Whatever that was, it seems like maybe this vacation was kind of a last hurrah. Like, hey, let's try to get the band back together. Maybe we can make our relationship good again. And it kind of explains some of the underlying stuff. Because when they're out there on the porch arguing, allowing Ethan his backdoor escape, it feels like obviously there's something pretty big happening there between the two of them. So that was interesting, just as sort of character backstory. And when we see Tabitha go up to Colony House to give Julie, so many characters, to give Julie a jacket, I was really struck by how cold Julie was to Tabitha in a way that I felt like wasn't just teen angst. It felt like there's something really personal happening here. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I get it that they were upset because their mother, her mother was and father was getting a divorce. I'm wondering.
Well, that's next episode. We learned that next episode.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
Okay. But this is the lead up to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, see, this is one thing about when you've seen them ahead. Why I try not to do that, but But anyway, it is what it is. Going back to what you're saying about the way that she is cold to her mother, it's part of it's teen angst. I think part of it is look at the situation they're in. And then another thing is she's a young woman who is trying to, she's coming into her own as a young woman. She's at a point where I'm sure she doesn't want to follow her family, parents' rules and whatnot. And so I think a lot of it is that. Plus, I mean, I already let the cat out the bag, but the issues, in the home life too. And I think a lot of times what happens is kids are smarter than we give them credit for. So a lot of times we put on a brave face in front of our kids, like everything is fine and everything is good, everything is a hunky dory, when really things are not. We think we're shielding it from our kids, and our kids are like, "This is just so fake," this is not real. And I think a lot of that is going on. It's like we're acting like everything is fine when it's really truly not.
Well, I feel like something big happened prior to us meeting Jim and Tabitha and the kids in the RV. Something big clearly happened, and it got them on the road. And like I said, the last hurrah and whatever. But whatever it was that happened, it was so deeply personal. that it created some kind of big rift between Tabitha and Julie. So I I don't I mean I can guess a little bit about what is sort of happening based on some other things, but I feel like at this point that also is important in the sense that this is why Julie chose Colony House, but any reconciliation now feels out of sync with the rest of the story based on what we know is happening between Boyd and Ellis, Boyd's son, up at Colony House.
Mhm.
Um, because of how things are sort of uh both the story is unraveling and the story of the characters is beginning to get tighter. So as we understand what's happening to the family that's here and Jade, we are by proxy discovering all of the things that make up the character drama that already exists. And it feels like it runs in kind of parallel to some of the things that are kind of going on. So when Fatima and Ellis offer Julie their, a little nook in their room and make it all special and, really welcome her, it it to me it feels like what Julie is getting out of that is belonging. Like all of a sudden now she has found family, where it up to this point it feels like we were being told that, well, even if she had a family, she didn't really feel like she was part of the family. And that's why being with Fatima and Ellis feels so good, because that is fulfilling in her that need to have family. Now, we would be remiss if we were to leave this episode and not talk about Sarah and what happens in the diner at the end. Yep, there it is up on the screen. Kill the boy ends up being written on her arm, just sort of seemingly out of nowhere and in front of our very eyes. She looks at that and then she looks at Ethan. Now, prior to this, she had spent a bunch of time with Ethan in the diner, and they were looking for something. And Sarah was being super nice with him, and then she gets this message, and then right after that she drops into a convulsion. Now, we know that this is significant because in our very first episode, we know that it's Sarah that kills Jade's partner in the car, or no, not in the car, but the partner that was in the car, for a similar kind of reason. She heard the voice that said that she had to kill him. That's what she tells her brother. And she thinks somehow that these things are connected to something that's happening, some like there's a solution here. I mean, obviously she's not just paying attention to these things for no reason. She actually believes that there's something behind it. And with the next episode we get a whole bunch more information about that, but I have to say I was actually shocked at that because it was just such a visceral reminder that there is something hugely supernatural working, and it's malevolent. It's not, there is nothing benevolent happening here with most of the characters. So how did you feel about that? What did you see, and what was your idea?
I was like, oh shit, like that was a big time oh shit moment. And one thing that I also was struck by it was that um it shows you that you're not safe in the daytime, because there's this thing like, okay, well, it's daylight, so we're
Mhm.
good. It shows you that, even at night, I mean, even in the daytime, you could be potentially at risk. So I thought it was really good.
Yeah, potentially at risk, and also I feel like it is a further reminder, like we see the crows during the day too. It's a further reminder that whatever is happening here, even if it's just the monsters that are coming out at night, there is something. And that's why, if we go back to the very beginning of what I was saying about structure and design, clearly there is something very structured happening here. But what it is feels open ended, and I and it also drove me to think that Ethan is somehow a connection. There is some kind of and I guess I just go back to, I think that kids are threats. Um,
They
it
are.
feels like Ethan is somehow in the middle of, maybe it's his presence that is causing such a huge problem. Um, and I don't know what that is, but it sure is an interesting thing to speculate on because, wow, nobody likes to see kids in peril, and yet this whole drama is unfolding around putting him and Julie in peril, which is it's kind of interesting. So I
Well,
really
I'll
like this
say
episode.
this. I'll say this. The show started out with a kid being killed,
That's right. Yes. Yes.
and now you have obviously all this. Maybe it's a holy war of two sides, between the two kids. Maybe she was him before,
Mm.
because are there any other little kids there?
Not that I've seen. I don't see them. I don't see
Right,
them.
right. So they did what they had to do to get her. So now, so I don't know. I think let's talk more about it on the next episode, and then
I, one quick thing.
mhm.
Just going to the children's theme. Remember that our opening, even though we know that these pictures were done by Victor, they're all in crayon. They are all children's pictures. And
Yeah,
that also kind of lends to the understanding that kids are the key to this. So very interesting. Very interesting.
the children are the future.
Yes. Well, and in this case, maybe the coming apocalypse. I don't know.
Uh-huh. All right.
All right. So having said that, Kinte, how can we get you on social media?
You can get me at Kente F on Twitter, Kente Ferguson on Instagram, and of course the website is theindyradio.com. That's the INDYradio.com. How can we get you, Jen?
You can find me at moviesandmeals.com. And I just wanted to mention real quick that in terms of social media, Indie Radio, well, not social media, but also Indie Radio has so much content. Lots of other podcasts, you'll never run out of things to listen to. So head on over there and take a listen. We will see you next time on Talking From.
All right.